Lean thinking, what is it? No. Lean thinking utilizes simple to understand concepts that will help you eliminate or reduce waste from your organization. It's hard to disagree with the amount of productivity improvements that are gained by applying this type of thinking. Toyota Motor Company is the most successful manufacturing organization in the world. Many people have gone to figure out where, how, why. When did Toyota Motor Company become the most successful in the world, and what can we learn from them? James Womack and Dan Jones studied the practices used by Toyota intensely. What they observed was that there were some universal principles, call them truths, in the business called Toyota for positive change in any system. In 1996, Womack and Jones authored the book, Lean Thinking. They came up with 5 principles of lean thinking. These principles are easy to learn and yet extremely effective. The proof is in the pudding.
George!
Nonetheless, a large number of companies and organizations around the world have yet to adopt them. And that is a shame. Now then, lean is based on 50 to 60 years of tried and true principles in problem solving. It applies strategies that improve any process. Here's an example from the healthcare industry. In the past, if you visited an emergency room, regardless of your emergency, you would have found that in general, the wait time is horrendous. Ow. All right. Think of the most important machine in your life. It should be your body. Now, what happens when it's sick? You go to the emergency room and now you get frustrated. You just can't fathom the waiting time. Why would somebody make you wait? You're stuck in a process and you don't know why, and it makes absolutely no sense. The main reason for this frustration is a lack of information. Have you ever heard the saying, garbage in, garbage out? Well, in this case, lack of information, relevant information in the system leads to more waste later on. Like in any system, you want to identify what the big bang for the dollar is. And in this case, it's a Kaizen. The Kaizen, which is a good change, was that hospitals put in a light system, like red, yellow, green, to identify where I, the patient, am in the process. So if somebody comes in and they've got a heart attack, they move ahead. But if somebody else comes in and they've got just a sore finger, a paper cut, well, they're going to stay in the green zone and I'm moving ahead of them. All right, one thing in lean we learned really fast is that customer rules. Customer's number one. So this signal allowed us to start thinking about the patient as the customer. Now this is interesting because now the patient, who's the customer, is the focus. The focus is the patient. And how quickly they move through the system is what hospitals and healthcare systems are looking at improving today. If that flow isn't smooth, they identify the bottleneck, and we need to focus on those bottlenecks and improve the throughput. Lean thinking focuses on the whole, and from there we look at the root causes of the waste. Before I started my consultancy, my personal experience was in the manufacturing business. My experiences started off in the manufacturing side, then it went into engineering, and then scheduling, and in general, plant management. In those days, when we wanted to make an improvement, we were only thinking about the department or a process within it. Our mind was never about thinking about the overall system. It's only when we started focusing on the overall system that we started seeing what large improvements could be had by the company. After some time, what you're doing is you're exercising this superpower of seeing things differently, and it starts with a map. Now, Now, there's a lot of lean thinkers in the world, and I've got a few friends that are lean thinkers. One of my friends is Bob. Now, Bob had a friend named Jim, and Bob explained to Jim how lean thinking applies in every industry. Now, Jim just wouldn't believe him. So he says, Bob, I want you to come fishing with me. You show me how it applies to my industry. So they went fishing. They went to the middle of the Atlantic, and the goal was to bring a lot of fish back to shore. And as they were fishing, Bob was observing what was going on. What he observed was something pretty amazing. He observed that the motor of the boat started giving in when they had a big haul of fish. Now, why was that important? Because when he drew it on a map, and he started looking at the number of fish they were capable of bringing back to shore, the limiting factor was the motor, not the size of the net. They both looked at this map and they said in amazement, why don't we just bring in fish more frequently so the motor does not give in? And the lights went on. Aha! This made it the system thinking that we were talking about. More fish came back to shore, and the reason was that we applied the lean thinking process. Bob thought the problem was the motor. In fact, the problem was that we weren't thinking like we have a system in place. Now, the lesson is that if you treat things like a system, you're bound to make an improvement. Lean thinking applies to every industry. Lean utilizes simple and easy to understand concepts to minimize and eliminate waste and make improvements to productivity. At some point in our industry, we started realizing we were spending money in the wrong places. Now, we should have been focusing on the bottleneck in the manufacturing process. Lean trains people to see under a new light and to think differently about how they can function effectively in their workplace. As my associates and many professionals in the industry are talking about lean, they're getting very pumped up, very excited about it. All of them realize that they can apply it in the workplace, at home, or anywhere in between where processes exist, which is everywhere. Everywhere. When we are done, you're going to know everything you need to know about the topic of lean thinking. You will be able to talk the talk and walk the walk.